Right now, you're probably in need of a tablet, and two of the top choices available are the Google Nexus 7 and the Apple iPad mini with Retina display. Which of the two is best? I'm Andrew with MobileBurn.com, here to find out. First of all, when deciding between the two tablets, you have to consider what type of person is likely to enjoy each the most. The iPad mini is geared more towards the media consumer, gamer, and app conscious. It has a wide array of content and is designed to meet the needs of people who are really locked into the Apple ecosystem. They're the type of people that use their iPhone on the go, the MacBooks at work, and of course the iPad and all other areas in between. The Nexus 7, on the other hand, runs the Android operating system from Google, which is of course capable of many of those same things, but the difference are in the app choices and the flexibility. Android by nature gives you more choices, so if you don't like what Google has to offer, you can easily find a replacement and set it as the default app for that activity, something you can't really do on an iPad. But we'll get back to the differences in software in a minute. For now, let's just focus on the hardware. You may have noticed that the two devices are about the same height, but the iPad is actually wider. That's an annoyance when you're watching video, but it's beneficial when you're reading the web or ebooks. The iPad mini has an IPS display that's 7.9 inches with 2048 by 1536 resolution, which comes to about 326 pixels per inch. That means it's going to be clear, bright, beautiful, and sharp for text. The Nexus 7 has a 7-inch screen that's 1920 by 1200 or 323 pixels per inch. Now, those little differences in pixel per inch don't really mean anything because both of these are fantastic displays. You'll never really notice a difference in terms of the quality of the text shown, so it's really a matter of preference. With the Nexus 7, the colors look a little bit better to me, but the iPad mini offers more screen real estate. As for the body of each device, the iPad mini has an incredibly light feel and an aluminum background with slanted metal edges. You'll know that you're touching a great device when you're holding the iPad mini, and you'll really appreciate it. The Nexus 7 also feels fantastic despite being made of plastic. Oh my god, I didn't realize that rhymed when I wrote it. Oh, that sounds terrible. Anyway, the tablet has a matte finish on the back that's smooth and retains very little moisture, and the ceramic buttons on the side for power and volume controls are very responsive as well. The advantage for the Nexus 7 is that in addition to being lighter, it's slim enough to palm with one hand if you've got large hands, so it'll feel the slightest bit easier to handle. The rest of the specs have little distinguish between the two devices from each other. Both have very fast processors, they enable quick performance, and overall you really won't notice a difference between how fast each of them runs unless you're really looking for it. The iPad mini feels a little bit faster and more responsive, but only when you disable the animations because that can trick your eye into making it seem like it's going a lot slower. But when we're talking about a very small difference, like I said before, the iPad also edges it in terms of speaker volume and sound quality, but the Nexus 7 has the advantage on speaker placement. The Nexus splits its speakers on opposite sides when it's held in landscape mode, compared to the iPad mini, which has both of them on the right-hand side. Now, if you can overlook that annoyance for the iPad mini, you'll notice that the iPad has better sound output in terms of volume and quality. The final area of concern for hardware is battery life, and it's a little bit harder to pick a winner in this scenario. It really depends on how you set your devices. First off, you're going to get all-day battery life from both devices. Whether you buy a Nexus 7 or an iPad mini, you're more than likely going to be able to leave your house in the morning, use it frequently throughout the day, and still have battery left over by the time you get home. Because the Nexus 7 operates at a little bit higher brightness than the iPad mini, it's hard to gauge the differences between the two in battery life. Overall, I'd say that most of the time the Nexus 7 can last longer if you really bring the brightness down, but if you prefer to have a very bright screen, the iPad mini is going to compensate a little bit better for that and last a little bit longer. As I mentioned before, iOS 7 runs on the Apple iPad mini, and Android 4.4 runs on the Nexus 7. These are two different operating systems that have a lot of similarities, but some critical differences in terms of their pros and cons. One unique feature about the Nexus 7 is that it supports multiple profiles. This is something I really like because someone can set up a tablet to operate as they wish and have a spouse, child, or guest set up another profile with different settings and app data stored. And when that person logs in, all their information will appear. When the original tablet owner comes in, his information will appear, or her information, and that makes the Nexus 7 the ideal way to personalize one tablet for many people, such as a family. The Chrome browser present on the tablet is interconnected, so it stores from data, history, bookmarks, and even tabs that are synchronized across any device running Chrome with the same Google account. The iPad mini is capable of this as well with Chrome for iOS, but it's slower than the default Safari browser, and Safari in general is faster than Chrome even on a Nexus 7. When you run benchmarks, you're more than likely going to see, and even just your regular eyeball test, you're going to see that stuff tends to load faster in Safari. Now, Safari also offers you the ability to have an interconnected system if you're into the whole Apple, the whole mind state that they have. If you use your iPhone on the go, if you use your MacBook at home or for work, you're going to be able to have all that information that I mentioned previously, like your bookmarks and your open tabs, synced across. There's also a reading list, so if you see something on your desktop that you want to read later, just mark it and it'll be available in your iPad at another time. While it's easy to add from Safari to an iCloud connected account on your reading list, you're out of luck if you're looking for alternative solutions. And that's one of the ways that Android steps ahead of iOS 7, because it gives you more freedom to choose things the way that you want. You can share data between apps, and you can also set different apps to be the default. Now, despite its lockdown on app communication, the iPad mini maintains an edge in terms of app variety. Developers building for tablets tend to favor the iPad, and as a result, new features will launch there first than they will compared to Android. I'm not a fan of that, but whether it's because of developer talent differences between platforms or just a general disrespect for Android from major companies, most of the time an app will launch on iOS first. And as a result, if you're someone who likes to be on the bleeding edge of apps and install what's new right now, you're more than likely going to be happier on an iPad mini than you will on a Nexus 7. Don't get me wrong, most of what you want to do on a tablet can be done on a Nexus 7, and it can be done well, but it requires a little bit more time and patience. As for media, both tablets have great photo galleries capable of organizing your pictures according to albums, dates, and locations. They also automatically back up to the cloud so you can view them at later times or on different devices. On Android, you handle that with Google Plus Photos, which is also available on iOS but works better on Android on the Nexus 7. iOS users also have the ability to use iCloud as a way to back up their photos. When it comes to music, you've got Google Play Music on Android and iTunes Radio on the iPad mini. I prefer Google Play Music by a wide margin, but the good news for iPad mini buyers is that Google Play Music will eventually come to the iPad. A camera is not that important on a tablet, at least in my opinion, because you're more likely to take much better photos on a phone. But they both have 5 megapixel cameras on the rear and 1.2 megapixel cameras in the front. And the recording video on the rear camera is less choppy, it's smoother. Taking photos looks a little bit clearer on the iPad mini. Now, as for the performance of the two front-facing cameras, here's a side-by-side comparison so you can get an idea of it now. And it should be recording. All right. Hey, everyone. This is Andrew, and I'm testing out the front-facing cameras on the iPad mini with Retina on the right-hand side and the Google Nexus 7 2013 edition on the left-hand side. By now, you should have gotten a point of what it's like to use the front-facing cameras if you're recording a video or video chatting on a very strong connection. So if you can, please excuse me while I go get a haircut and shave off this cop mustache that's just not working for me. In conclusion, I'd like to reiterate that these are two of the best tablets that you can get on the market right now. Whether you're gaming, reading, or just writing or being entertained, you're more than likely going to be happy with either purchase. I just feel like the iPad mini is more than likely going to make someone a little bit happier. only because the two tablets are so equal in many areas that the iPad having superior speakers and more app options might make it come out ahead of some others. However, the Nexus 7 offers a much better option on price. The 16GB model costs only $229, and upgrading to 32GB costs $269. Compare that with the iPad mini with Retina display, which costs $399 for 16GB and $499 for the 32GB. That's a huge difference, and the price discrepancy really doesn't warrant that much of a difference in my eyes. Unless someone is an Apple devotee or very app conscious, I would recommend purchasing the Nexus 7. It offers the same specs and performance that are capable of standing up to the iPad mini, and it does it for a considerably lower price. Like I said, the iPad might do some things better than the Nexus 7, but one of those things it doesn't do better is go easy on your wallet. I hope this video was helpful in making a decision, and if so, feel free to click like and subscribe so you can see some of our other reviews. Until next time, thanks for watching.